over the state of Colorado. We read for 12 different hospitals. Majority of those are Denver metro area, but we do read for several rural hospitals up in the mountains as well. And we also read for about 25 clinics, small one-off offices with their own modalities for various different types of practices.
How many different PACS systems do you connect to in terms of the sites you're reading for, and maybe also how many different RIS systems and HIS systems do you connect to?
Given all, it varies given the hospitals. So some of the hospitals will have a centralized. We'll have a health system that we read for several hospitals for, and they will have one PACS that supports multiple hospitals. All told, I think it's about 9 or 10 PACS systems. We have one small rural hospital that actually went with Intelerad, so we're fully integrated with them, and that certainly made that more easy for our purposes. In terms of RIS and HIS, same answer. A lot of the health systems tend to be more centralized on their RIS and HIS systems, so it's probably about 7 or 8 altogether.
How many users do you manage from an IT standpoint, and what are the main categories or groups of users?
About 130 users. Over 60 of those are doctors. They're obviously our primary consumer. We also manage the business office here at corporate. We have a fairly large billing operation, which is about 30 people. And then the rest of our staff are executive and support staff, IT, and some administrative clerical type roles that support our doctors. I think our biggest challenge has always been, we're a fairly large practice. We read for many environments, and the challenge has always been, our doctors' workflow and how much they can handle any given day. And our old approach was to centralize subspecialized reads, and that involved getting a lot of manual steps to getting cases into, at the time was an e-film environment. And with that, our docs still read out of our partner hospitals' PACS. But in any given day, that could mean, that could be an hour's worth of time for a doctor just logging into and logging out of third-party systems. All of our remote, one-off clinics, we use Intelerad to read for those now, and that's certainly proved to be beneficial. But the biggest challenge is just, integration. To us, it's critical that we maintain a workflow for our doctors that's seamless to them, and they can just look at one work list, read everything they need to read for that day, and be done with their day without having to deal with multiple systems, multiple logins, and all the things that go along with that. The initial sites that we did, we were able to prove that out pretty easily, just in terms of showing, we've always tracked turnaround times for internal purposes, just, for QA for our own doctors, but also it's good data to show our partner facilities, what kind of job we're doing for them. So we've always measured that even before Intelerad. Intelerad actually gives us better tools to measure that with now. And it's a pretty easy story to tell. And typically it's just the third party being willing to share, internal information about, their costs for transcription and other things that go along with that, and how we can kind of, seamlessly break that down. We were looking at, if you're measuring against a traditional transcription system, we were looking at going anywhere from a 4 to 8 hour average to under a half hour. In some cases it was as low as 10 minutes for some doctors, depending on the sites they're reading for. And it obviously varies from doctor to doctor. We have multiple workflows for our physicians in terms of some of our doctors are still more comfortable sending, even though we're using voice recognition, they still want to send those out to an editor and they don't want to have to self-edit. So depending on the workflow they use, the ones that self-edit and sign pretty much immediately, some of those doctors average, 15-20 minutes on report turnarounds, whereas before in a traditional transcription model, you were looking at anywhere from 2 to 10 hours, and then the true turnaround time could bleed into 24, 48 hours because that doc may not work for another day or two, or report they finalized on a Friday and didn't get back to signing it until a Monday or Tuesday after transcription. It certainly depends on the willingness and the level of cooperation we get from the third party. From our perspective, and leveraging Intelerad experience, I mean, it's fairly seamless for us, and we've done, like I said, we've had 3 sort of major hospital integrations to date. We've done enough of the smaller one-off facilities that we know all the steps we need to take. It's just a matter of getting that cooperation. So, in terms of time to get the project moving forward, it's very easy for us to get that moving. But again, it depends on the level of cooperation from third parties. I'd say we don't have too many challenges in regards to data security. We've also had pretty good relationships and working agreements with our third parties. All of our hospitals, we have direct network connections into their facilities. We maintain our own network up to our firewall in their facility, and we have cross connects right into their network, which is how DICOM wise and typically RIS/HL7 data, all that traverses those connections. So in terms of data security, integrity, they're behind their firewalls, we're behind our firewalls, we connect on the inside, and we've never had an issue in terms of data management. From a security perspective, it's just not to say it's not a concern, but we've got all the protections in place to manage that pretty seamlessly. We've always managed that fairly well. Hospitals, whether we have a workflow where the facility itself has always sent us priors, or our administrative staff, our air traffic control group, they will go out and pull priors, be it from a PACS or an archive somewhere. IntelliOne has certainly helped us with that. Again, it just gets back into the integration aspect for the sites that we've integrated with, and we have the ability to automatically prefetch. It's almost an entirely seamless workflow, which is huge for us because we do have a small group that previously did a lot of things manually, and now we're as we integrate with those bigger sites, it becomes they just have to manage the exceptions, and the workflow is just that much smoother, both for them and for our doctors. It's certainly minimized for the sites that we've integrated. It's minimizing the amount of time just in terms of logging in and logging out. I do think it's important to point out not all the PACS systems have what amount to roaming profiles in terms of layout protocols and other preferences that the doctors use, and Intelerad does have that capability, and that's certainly proved beneficial. Yeah, I think from my perspective, I have somewhat of a Linux background, so I like the approach that Intelerad takes in terms of leveraging open source and open standards, and I think that's an important thing in technology, and especially in healthcare. In terms of support, maintenance, all those things, we've had a very good experience. I mean, Intelerad has a very good support model in terms of remote administration, remote monitoring. I would say 99% of the time, especially from a server side perspective, problems are solved before they occur. And Intelerad we view as a partner and kind of an extension of the IT group here. Yeah, from an IT perspective, it's certainly, I think I mentioned earlier, I mean, we had a very manually oriented workflow around eFilm, and just to be able to come in every day, instead of looking at, multiple workstations, worrying about disk space and managing eFilm's database and just minor administrative tasks like that, to just being able to log into I can log it into IntelliBrowser, see everything at a glance from an admin perspective, but then kind of drill down and see what the doctors are doing. It's just a lot easier from a systems administrative perspective, which suits me very well. In terms of workflow overall, it's just improved things across the board. ATC has a much cleaner approach to those things. And all the steps that they had to take previously. The more we integrate, the more it benefits everybody involved. Very important to the doctors. I think mobility is the bigger concern. I'm a big fan of open standards. I don't want to be tied to one platform. I think it's more important to have data available regardless of how you want to view it and what device you want to view it on. So And I know Inteleradi's working towards that. But mobility is a big thing. I do think there's security concerns and other things to deal with there, but they're not that difficult to overcome given how networks are set up now and the types of devices that are out there and are coming. I think, obviously we need to finish our integrations. I mean, that's the focus and the primary objective with IntelliOne as a system. I think as we move forward, assuming our integrations are done, but even before we get there, we'll start to do some of these things. The data that's within Intelerad itself is very useful. We talked about report turnaround times, but there's a lot of good data that we get, for a practice as large as ourselves that's just important to radiology in general and healthcare in general and the healthcare environment as it is in the country right now. We want to bubble that up and make it useful.